Alright, what about Hansa here? Quite honestly, I don't think there's a whole hell of a lot to be said about it. It's a fairly light game. Simple optimizations, at least from my point of view. Not a lot of planning that you can make in the 4-player game, because the randomization on these counters means you can kind of deliver the ship towards where you've got power and stuff like that and have those kind of thoughts. But in a 4-player game, I think it gets a little too random. The game may suffer from the Scrabble syndrome, okay? By the Scrabble syndrome, and there's this weird red dot right in the middle of my camera, which makes me think that, like, maybe I'm getting that red dot, but that may just be the camera running, so I don't know. The Scrabble syndrome is some butthead sitting, you know, to the right of the guy in a normal clockwise game as opposed to what I do, to the right of a guy who's doing reasonably well, just keeps leaving opportunities open. There isn't a lot of defensive play you want to do here, though, because your resources are very limited on each turn. But there are certainly things that you can do to slow someone down from winning. You can not pay them money. You can try to avoid the ports where they control power. You can try to put your own power into that port so that they don't get the cash from the goods there. You can direct the ship away from their side of the board. You can not leave them with a setup of a rich trade route. I suspect that very seldomly, though, does anybody play very defensively in this. In 4, maybe even in 3 players. In 2 players, though, the game changes significantly. Well, Carcassonne has this factor, too, where you can really look at the board and plot out what your opponent's going to have as an opportunity. But usually, you're leaving him, at worst, with, hey, you want to draw a whole bunch of new pieces? Yeah, it costs him $1 every time he does that. The less times you have to do that where you can score kind of the same as everyone else, the better off you're doing. But I don't think there's a whole lot you can even do really in 2. You might be able to leave someone with a really ugly board situation, but then they can, you know, where the counters are on the board and there's no deliveries to make, but then they can sail their boat and set up new markets for it. Component-wise, I think it's very pretty. I like the board a lot. Very clear. The only issue is sometimes some spillage comes over and you're not sure, you know, the little wooden bits, and you're not sure which way the arrow's facing, but, you know, that's the one place where it gets kind of confusing. I like the mechanism of the draw and the way the piles go, although, really, all these piles are just to even out and balance the game. The only one that matters is this one, is that you don't reach that one, but this gives you the evening out, which works nicely. I like the kind of choices with it. This is actually my kind of game. I like games that aren't, you know, requiring you to think really, really hard. If something's going to be this abstract, what are we, a bunch of guys on one boat, you know? But every now and then one of us gets to direct the boat, and with bribes or something, you know, I mean, in terms of the subject matter, this is what I'd call a thematic game. I love doing that. No, seriously. There's very little here to deal with. But again, the components are top-notch. You get these little coin bags, you get a little wooden boat. The coins, you don't have many of them, and you don't need many. The little wooden discs all work very functionally well. Color-wise, I guess the gray and the white could be an issue, but I don't have a problem with them. The rules come in many, many languages. I don't know how many. At least 4. And, you know, for me, it's a nice little light game that I would pull out, I don't know, you know, if I had less games more often, but probably at most a couple times a year, simply to get the experience of it. I don't think there's a lot of depth here, to tell you the truth. Even in 2 players, I guess it's better than playing a game of gin rummy, but it doesn't have quite that simplicity of, you know, the patterns that you've learned all your life. Now, you could play it often. It could be in the same place as a Carcassonne. I feel like Carcassonne is somewhere, you know, I'm more likely to play Carcassonne for some reason. I don't know why. But really, it's the same kind of thinking. You know, and I enjoy it, and I would enjoy it multiplayer too, just as sort of this social activity with optimization going on that's not going to hurt my head. I'm not going to have to think real hard about it. If it's not going to be tied to a subject matter deeply, this is about the level that I like. It's got a decent amount of luck in it to shake things up, yet I'm still making decisions that influence the play. It's just, you know, I'm not sitting there calculating out 3 turns in advance what's going to happen. I can't. It's impossible in this game. And I like that. All right, up it goes. Like I said, not much to say.